Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Siamese, home out December 10th on Long Branch Records. The album has 12 tracks, 43 minutes in length, and this is the band's 6th full-length studio album. They are a Danish rock metalcore band, and this album has a little of rock, a little of metalcore, and a lot of something else that I'm not quite sure how to define it. I'll try it, but I'm not quite sure if I'm going to get it correctly. Now, what I'm going to get correctly is how this structure is put together. Seamless. That's how it feels. There's no breaks, there's no pauses. This is an album that from the moment you press play until it's done, it just feels like one single song with different momentums built into it. The way it moves, the way it navigates, sometimes you have to pause and go check to see if you're still listening to the same song, because a lot of the soundscapes and a lot of the atmospheres that it creates really permeate from track to track, allowing the songs to still have their own individual fingerprint, but overall really have a lot of strength that permeates towards the collective. Now, once you get into the soundscape, I feel like this is perhaps pop rock mixed with metalcore. This is perhaps the best way I have to describe what you're going to get out of this album. An album that has great sound. It has layers, but it's not overly layered, and therefore it comes across with a sense of simplicity to it. Easy to digest, easy to understand what's happening, easy for you to break down all the different elements that make up the sound and therefore the atmosphere. The lyrical content feels really personal, and because of that, there's this emotional drive that has a direct impact on how you're going to perceive these songs or how you're going to feel about these songs. I honestly, going through this album, I felt like every single song had somewhat of a representation of myself in them. That's what you're going to get out of the lyrical themes, and then the music really creates the sound that surrounds those lyrical themes perfectly, almost becoming the score to the personal story that they're telling you. This is the soundscape of this album, an album that sounds very hooky, that feels very hooky, that it's built that way in order to really bring you in and keep you glued to it so that you don't walk away from it and forget about it. This album is very memorable from that perspective. It has great lines, great hooks, great melodies, and it comes together very effortlessly. Now, within that soundscape, outside of the electronic elements that permeate throughout this album, they don't drive the experience at all. They're just there in order to create a little bit more depth to the sound, in order to create a little bit more substance to make the overall experience feel a little bit more robust. So outside of that, you really have to look at the guitars and drums. The drums feeling a little bit more consistent on this album, allowing themselves to really ground the record but not overly ground the album, because this is an album that really floats most of the time. So there's not a lot of grounding happening here. But whenever you have moments of a little bit more of an intensity or even aggression, if you will, I hate using that word because this is not a very aggressive sounding album, but whenever you have a change in mood, let's go with that, whenever you have a change in mood, most often than not, that change really happens through the drums, in terms of how much thickness they give to the sound, how much they add to the overall experience, and a little bit of heaviness that gets packed in there. The drums really help define those parameters. But overall, they have a very consistent role. They're always in the background, creating that roadmap, creating that avenue that this album really travels across, sometimes almost like I said earlier, in a seamless fashion, not really letting you know exactly where you are at any given time. On the other hand, you have the guitars. Perhaps the diversity of this album comes more from the guitar sound than anything else. It's melodic, it's driven, sometimes it has enough bite in it to be a little bit heavier, to change the momentum, to change the mood of the tracks, to change how you perceive the songs, and have a direct impact on the ebbs and flows that this record offers. So the guitar sound, it's diverse, it's different in terms of how it interacts with the other elements. It doesn't follow patterns, it doesn't follow norms. It's not like you can see what's coming around the corner as far as the guitars are concerned. On this record, they really keep you on the edge of your seat, and while not playing perhaps a direct role in terms of how it drives the overall soundscape of the record, they definitely play an important role on defining that soundscape. This is a record that lives off of the quality of all of these factors coming in, not necessarily one surpassing the others. You can't say that this is a drum-driven record or that the guitars have a predominant role on this album. No, as far as the sound goes, all the elements have an equal role, all of them play a different role, but they all come together in order to create what this album is all about. If there's one thing driving this record, is the vocal performance. Outstanding. The vocals on this record become the calling card. The vocals is what brings you in, is what keeps you in, and is what's going to keep you coming back for more. Outstanding performance, sometimes very haunting, very introspective, and the more introspective they become, the more haunting they feel. Whenever they go a little bit outside of that box, they feel a little bit more edgy. They add a little bit more to the overall punch that the tracks have, and they dictate a little bit of more roughness that comes with the sound. But overall, the vocals are phenomenal when they stay in that pocket, when they allow themselves to be very melancholic and bring the mood of the entire record down with them. Now, there's some guests on this album, and the guests really help spice up the overall record. It adds a little bit of a different flavor as far as vocals are concerned, bringing a little bit of something different, and I really felt that was an interesting approach in order to create some diversity vocally when perhaps that diversity did not exist beforehand. All around, what can I say about this album? At first glance, I wanted to hate it because I couldn't define it. What is this? Is this pop? Is this rock? Is this pop rock? But there's some metalcore in it as well. So is this popcore? Like, what is this? And because I couldn't define it, it took me a little bit of time to really appreciate it because I was stuck in that point. The moment that I forgot about it, the moment that I said I'm not going to try to define what this record is about, the moment I stopped trying to put it into a box or say that this is an album that perhaps I wouldn't listen to unless I was doing a review, the more I started to enjoy the record, and the vocals really captivated me. So when you have a vocalist like this, and when you have the soundscape that really allows those vocals to shine, how can you not like a record? This album is phenomenal from top to bottom. It's a really incredible album, an album that perhaps is not going to be fit for every single person. But if you like that pop rock with a metalcore edge to it, or if you're willing to dive deep into that pool, into that shallow pool, I think this album is going to be a home run. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Honest. The piano and vocals really take hold of this track, and it feels really stripped down. It gains thickness as it moves along. So it starts off piano and vocals, then you see other layers being added. By the time it gets to the end of the track, it becomes really heavy with the guitars and drums coming in and packing a very heavy punch in order to put the exclamation mark on this song. So musically, it's really interesting because you see the evolution almost from baby all the way to adulthood. So there's a very interesting process that this song takes musically. Vocally, in my opinion, it felt a little bit more controlled. Phenomenal chorus. The chorus really it becomes so impactful because it feels so introspective, it feels so personal, and you're able to connect with the melody of the voice, the melody of the song, and how the lyrics are coming together in that chorus, becoming very impactful. Beautiful song all around, bringing all of these different elements together, and that heaviness at the end, it's really the end result of everything that was building up all the way to that point. Next, you have Can't Force the Love, one of the hookiest, catchiest songs on this album. It mixes some electronic elements in the soundscape, allowing to create a bigger atmosphere, making the track even feel more melodic. The drums and guitars come in, they substantiate the sound, they make the song feel more robust, bringing the volume of the track up and allowing the vocals to navigate between those two worlds. This track has moments of heaviness and has moments of just melancholy and melody. So the vocals navigate between these two worlds, becoming the puppet master, pulling the strings, changing how you feel towards this song, becoming more dynamic. Overall, the song is already very dynamic musically, but I felt that vocally there were some changes happening that allowed the song to become dynamic on both fronts, and allowing this track to have a very interesting movement from beginning to end. You see that motion between the verses and the chorus. The chorus, like I said, so catchy, so hooky, beautifully delivered. One of the best songs on this entire record. Last but not least, Rather Be Lonely. Interesting song from a lyrical content, because a lot of people sometimes rather be with bad company than by themselves, and this song takes the complete opposite of that thought process. I really like the lyrics. I really like the lyrics throughout the entire album because, once again, I connected with every single one of them. It felt like it could have been something that I was saying myself, and this song is no different. Vocally, this track is phenomenal. If there's one thing that's going to captivate you about this song, that's not just going to bring you in, but it's going to keep you in, it's definitely the vocal performance. It's just on par with the rest of the album, but on this song, somehow, it had a little bit of extra juice in it in terms of how you felt the emotions coming through it. The lyrics push that emotional drive as well. They feel very personal. All of them do throughout this entire album. No different with Rather Be Lonely. And then having a more controlled approach in the verses allows the chorus to feel a little bit more intense and a little bit more aggressive. So you have those ebbs and flows that are really important for a track like this to not get stale, to always feel like it's moving. Vocally, the changes perhaps a little bit more subtle. Musically, definitely there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more dynamic mechanisms at play throughout this entire track. Phenomenal song. Once again, you come in for the vocals and you're going to stay for the vocals. This is it. Siamese, Home, out December 10th on Long Branch Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band. On the singles, use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.